I only took the night nurse shift because it paid double. If you're new here, breathe. This story is the kind that starts normal, sterile floors, quiet hallways, polite lies, and ends with your name in someone else's mouth before you've even introduced yourself. One patient, private floor, no visitors, and one rule from the head of security that he repeated like a prayer. Don't speak to him. I laughed, because what kind of patient requires silence? Then the elevator opened on the top floor, and I stopped laughing. The doors parted with a soft sigh, like the hospital itself was exhaling, and I stepped out into a hallway that didn't feel like a hospital at all. The lights were dimmer, warmer. The carpet wasn't the industrial gray you see everywhere else. It was thick, dark, expensive, like a hotel that pretends it isn't trying to impress you. There were no posters about hand washing, no cheerful signs, no donation flyers taped to the walls, just two men in suits. Not scrubs, not security uniforms. Suits. They weren't pretending to be anything else either. Their hands weren't in their pockets. Their posture was too still. Their eyes tracked me like I'd brought something dangerous up with me. I clutched my badge instinctively, as if the plastic card could protect me. "Night nurse?" one of them asked. "Yes," I said. Name?" He cut in, and he said it like it wasn't a question. I hesitated. "Nadia." He didn't react, just turned his head slightly, as if receiving something through an earpiece. "Last name." My skin tightened. "Ashford." That did it. The smallest pause. A flicker. Not surprise, recognition. The second man glanced at the first, and it was the most human thing either of them had done so far. A look that said, "Are we really doing this?" Then the first man nodded once, like he'd been given permission. "Follow me." I wanted to ask where my charge nurse was, where the other staff were, why this floor felt like it belonged to someone else. But the men moved without waiting for me, and something in my instincts, the same thing that tells you when a street is unsafe even if it looks fine, told me to stop asking questions. We walked past doors that didn't have names on them, past a nurse's station that looked untouched, like it was set dressed for a movie that never filmed. There were monitors, yes, charts, supplies, but no coffee cup rings on the counter, no pen caps, no loose sticky notes, no human mess. It smelled clean in a way that made my teeth hurt. At the end of the hall was a single door, no room number, just a keypad and a camera. The first man entered a code without looking at it. The door unlocked with a soft click, and the second man looked at me like he was about to apologize, then didn't. Before I could step inside, the first man caught my arm. Not rough, not gentle either. A grip that said, "Understand me." "Rules," he said. "Okay," I whispered. "You do not speak to him unless he speaks to you." My mouth went dry. He's sedated, right? His eyes didn't blink. "You do not ask questions." "Okay." "You do not open his chart." I stared at him. "How am I supposed to?" He tightened his fingers. "You do not open his chart." The second man leaned in, voice low. "You're here to do your job. Vitals. Meds as instructed. You see something weird, you call us. You don't fix it yourself." "Weird like what?" I asked before I could stop myself. Both men looked at each other again. Then the first man said, very calmly, "Weird like someone trying to kill him." The hallway went cold under my skin. I felt my pulse in my throat. "I'm sorry," I said, "because that's what you say when your brain doesn't know what else to do." "What?" He didn't answer. He just opened the door. The suite was larger than my apartment. A hospital bed sat in the center. Yes, but everything around it looked like a private residence. Leather chair, dark wood side table, a small bookshelf, a dim lamp casting honey-colored light across the walls. There was a window with city lights beyond it, and for a second, I forgot where I was. Then I saw the patient. He was lying still, oxygen line in place, IVs running into his arm like thin, obedient snakes. The sheets were pulled to his chest, and he looked too composed. Even unconscious, his face held control, like his body didn't know how to be vulnerable. Early 30s, maybe. Dark hair, sharp jaw, a small bruise at his temple, and hands that looked like they'd broken things before. The monitor ticked quietly. Beep, beep, beep. The first man motioned. "You're in until 6. I swallowed. "And we're here," the second man said. "Always." The first man released my arm and nodded once, like that was the end of our conversation. Then they stepped back out and closed the door behind them, and the lock clicked. I stood there for a beat, staring at the door like it might reopen on its own. It didn't. My throat tightened. "Be professional," I told myself. "Be a nurse." A private duty shift is supposed to be calm. I've done them before. Wealthy patients who don't want to share a floor with strangers, celebrity cases, a politician once. Sometimes there's extra security. Sometimes there are NDAs, but this felt like I'd stepped into a secret that wasn't meant to include me. I approached the bed slowly, checking the monitors. BP stable, O2 stable, heart rate normal. He looked asleep in the way predators look asleep, like they're resting, not helpless. I checked his IV site, his lines, his pupils with a pen light. Everything within normal. I took notes on the clipboard that had been left for me. No printed chart, just a handwritten list of meds and times like someone didn't trust the hospital system. At 10:30, I administered the first medication on the list. At 11 I did another round of vitals. At 11:30, I walked to the window, more to breathe than anything else. The city spread beneath me like glitter spilled across velvet. Cars traced thin lines of light through the streets. Somewhere down there, people were laughing in bars, ordering late-night food, fighting over nothing. Up here, on the private floor, it felt like the rest of the world had been muted. I turned back toward the bed. His eyes were open. I froze so hard my spine locked. The oxygen line still sat in place. His head hadn't moved, but his gaze was on me like a hand around my wrist. I forced myself to breathe. Mr. I started, then stopped, because I didn't know his name. A slow blink, then his lips parted. And in a voice that was calm enough to be terrifying, he said, "Don't call them yet, Nadia." The room tilted. My mouth opened. No sound came out. He knew my name. I hadn't said it in the room. The suits had asked in the hallway, yes, but he shouldn't have heard that. He'd been unconscious. I'd checked his pupils. He was sedated. I stepped back instinctively, bumping into the side table, and the lamp trembled. He watched it like he could control the movement with his eyes. "How?" I whispered. He turned his head slightly, just enough to show he was fully awake, fully present, fully aware. "You're shaking," he said. I clenched my hands into fists. "You shouldn't be awake." A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. And yet, I licked my lips, trying to drag my brain back into professional protocol. My training screamed, call security, call the physician, check sedation, assess orientation. But the rules in the hallway screamed louder. Don't speak unless he speaks to you. He's speaking to you. My brain supplied, so I swallowed. "Do you know where you are?" I asked, voice carefully neutral. His eyes flicked over my face like he was reading something printed under my skin. "Yes." "Do you know the date?" He paused just long enough to feel deliberate. "Tuesday." "That's not..." His gaze sharpened. "Don't insult me." My cheeks burned. I wasn't used to patients talking to me like I was beneath them. But he didn't sound angry. He sounded in control. I reached for the call button anyway. He didn't move, but his voice dropped. "If you press that," he said softly, "they'll come in loud. They'll make a scene. They'll sedate me again. And you'll be escorted out with a warning you won't forget." My finger hovered. "Why?" I asked, and the word came out before I could filter it. His eyes held mine. "Because they think you're a variable." I frowned. What?" His gaze flicked to my badge, then back to my eyes. "A mistake," he said. "A coincidence." My stomach tightened. "I don't even know you," I said, and I hated that my voice sounded smaller than I wanted. He nodded once, like he'd been expecting that. "You don't," he agreed. "But you will." I stood there, heart punching against my ribs. In the hallway, behind the door, I heard the faintest sound of movement, shoes shifting, quiet voices. The men were still there, watching, listening. The patient's eyes tracked the door like he could see through it. "They're worried," he said. "About what?" His eyes returned to me. "About you." I let out a breath that shook. "I'm a nurse." "You're something else too," he said, and his voice was so certain it made my skin crawl. "Okay," I said slowly, because I needed to anchor myself in something. "I'm going to check your vitals again." He didn't resist, didn't flinch, just watched me like this was his room and I was the one being evaluated. I wrapped the cuff around his arm. His skin was warm. His pulse under my fingers was steady, too steady, like his body didn't believe in panic. BP, slightly elevated. "You're under stress," I said, because it was the only normal thing I could offer. His gaze didn't move. "Are you?" I swallowed. I tried to focus on tasks. Oxygen saturation, respiratory rate, everything normal, which meant the danger wasn't medical. It was human. I stepped back and forced myself to meet his eyes. "Who are you?" I asked, and I knew it broke every rule, but I didn't care. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then, as if he'd decided I'd earned a sliver of truth, he said, "I own this hospital." My throat tightened. "Sorry," I whispered. "What?" He didn't blink. "I own the building, the land, the foundation, the people who think they run it." I stared at him, waiting for the delusion to show itself, but his face didn't change. It wasn't a sick man's fantasy. It was a statement, a fact, a threat. "You're a patient," I said weakly. He exhaled, almost amused. "Tonight? Yes." I took a step toward the door because my body wanted distance from him, from this room, from whatever this was turning into. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said my name again. "Nadia." I stopped. My spine went rigid. He continued, voice soft. "If you walk out that door right now, you won't go home. Not tonight." My blood ran cold. I turned slowly. "Are you threatening me?" His eyes sharpened. "No," he said. "I'm warning you." I stared at him. He held my gaze like he'd been holding it his entire life. "Someone brought you here on purpose," he said, "and I would like to know who." My mouth went dry. "I'm scheduled," I said. "I was called in. The agency." He cut me off, calm but absolute. "The agency doesn't schedule this floor, not without permission." I tried to breathe. I thought about my manager calling me earlier, the last-minute text, the pay rate, the vague details. It had felt lucky at the time. Now it felt like a trap. "I don't understand," I whispered. He watched me carefully, then said, "Look at me." I did. He held my eyes and said, "Do I scare you?" I wanted to lie, but my throat tightened. "Yes," I admitted. His gaze softened just slightly. Not warmth, not kindness. Something colder. Respect. "Good," he said. "Fear keeps you alive." I heard a subtle click at the door, then a soft knock, 3 taps, the same rhythm as a heartbeat. The patient's gaze flicked to it. "Come in," he called. The door opened immediately, and the 2 men in suits entered like they'd been waiting for permission. The first one glanced at me, then at the patient. "He's awake," he said flatly. "No," the patient corrected. "I'm conscious." The suit's jaw tightened. "Doctor." "I don't want a doctor," the patient said. "I want answers." The second suit's eyes moved to me, sharp and assessing. "She's not cleared," he said. The words hit me like a slap. "Not cleared? Cleared for what?" The first suit stepped toward me. "Nurse, you need to step out." I opened my mouth to protest. The patient spoke before I could. "She stays." Both suits froze. The air in the room turned heavy. The first suit's face tightened. "Sir?" "She stays," the patient repeated, voice quiet but lethal. "If anyone touches her, I'll have their hands." No one moved, even the suits. I felt my stomach drop. I wasn't comforted. I was suddenly aware I'd become something else. Not staff, not a nurse, property, or leverage. The second suit swallowed. "We can't verify." "You don't need to verify," the patient said. "You need to obey." A beat. Then the first suit exhaled, controlled. "Understood?" He turned to me. "Stay where you are," he said. "Don't move around the suite. Don't open anything. Don't—" "Stop," the patient said. The suit stopped. The patient's gaze slid to me again. "Nadia," he said softly, "do you know why you were hired tonight?" My mouth felt numb. "No." He nodded once. "Neither do they," he said, and he sounded like he found that unacceptable. The first suit said, "Sir, we need to sedate." The patient's eyes snapped to him. "You sedate me again," he said quietly, "and you'll be looking for a new job before sunrise." The suit's jaw clenched. "It's protocol." The patient's voice didn't rise. "My protocol is breathing." Silence stretched. Finally, the second suit said, "We'll check the cameras." The patient's gaze returned to me. "They won't find anything." I swallowed. "Why?" "Because whoever did this," he said, "is already inside the system." My fingers tingled with adrenaline. I tried to ground myself in the only thing I knew, my job. "Are you in pain?" I asked. His gaze held mine. "Not yet." That answer made my skin prickle. The first suit stepped toward the door. "We'll be outside." The patient didn't look at him. "You'll be useful if you remember you work for me." The suits left. The lock clicked again. I was alone with him. Again. My hands shook and I hated myself for it. I forced them to still by gripping the clipboard so hard my knuckles whitened. "You said someone brought me here on purpose," I said. He nodded. "And you think I'm connected to that?" He watched me and something in his gaze felt like a slow blade. "Yes," he said. I swallowed. "Why?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked, "Where were you born?" My throat tightened. "What?" He didn't blink. "Where?" I stared at him, heart pounding. "Virginia," I said. "Richmond." His gaze flickered, tiny. Then he said, "And before that?" My stomach dropped. I don't know what you mean." His eyes stayed locked on mine. "You don't remember," he murmured. The words landed like a weight. My mother had never talked about my early childhood. There were gaps. Foster care. A few years I didn't remember clearly. I'd always assumed it was trauma, or shame, or just life. But the way he said it, like he knew, like he'd expected me not to. "I'm going to call my supervisor," I said, voice thin. He watched me. "You can try." I reached for my phone. No service. I stared at the screen. "That's impossible. There's always—" "This floor is blocked," he said, "for obvious reasons." I looked up, anger rising through the fear. "You can't just—" He cut in, calm. "I can do whatever I want." That was the problem. He believed it. And everything about this floor told me he was right. My mind raced. Agency shift, double pay, private floor, suits, and a patient who knew my name. I forced myself to ask the question that mattered. "What do you want from me?" I said. He watched me for a long moment. Then he said, "Truth." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "I don't know anything. You know something," he said. "Even if you don't know, you know it." That made my skin crawl. "I'm not—" I started. He interrupted softly. "Look at the bruise on my head." My eyes flicked to it. "It's healing," he said, "which means I've been here long enough for someone to think I'm weak." My throat tightened. "Who would—" He held my gaze. "Someone who wants me dead." I stared. "And you think they hired me to—" "What?" His gaze didn't move. "To get close to me." My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. "I would never." "I know," he said, and the certainty in his voice was the most "You know?" I repeated. He nodded. "Because if you were here to kill me, you'd already have tried." I felt my breath leave me. He was right. And that thought made me feel like I was trapped in a story someone else was writing. He shifted slightly, wincing just enough to show he wasn't invincible. My nurse brain activated automatically. "You shouldn't move too much," I said, stepping closer. "You have—" He held up his hand, palm out. I stopped. He stared at me and said, "If you help me tonight, I'll make sure you never have to worry about money again." My stomach twisted. "Are you bribing me?" He studied my face like he was learning something. "Would it work?" "No," I snapped, too fast. His mouth quirked. "Good." Then his expression flattened again, serious. "You're not here for money," he said. My throat tightened. "Then why am I here?" He looked past me toward the dark window, and for the first time, his voice held something close to exhaustion. "Because someone wants to remind me of something I buried," he said. A shiver ran through me. "What did you bury?" I asked, quieter. He returned his gaze to me and said, "A promise." Before I could ask what that meant, the monitor beeped. Just once, sharper than before. He didn't flinch, but I did. I looked at the screen, a small spike, a blip, then normal again. I frowned. That wasn't his heart. That was interference. My eyes darted to the IV lines. The fluid bag, the drip, everything looked normal, but something in my stomach tightened. "Weird," I murmured before I could stop myself. His gaze sharpened. "What?" I stepped closer to the IV and watched the line. It was too steady, too perfect. I leaned in, and I saw it. A tiny air bubble. Not enough to kill, but enough to scare. Enough to send a message. My breath caught. I reached for the clamp instinctively, and then I remembered the suit's words. "You see something weird? You call us. You don't fix it yourself." I looked at him. Someone's been in here. His eyes didn't widen. He didn't react like a normal patient. He reacted like a man who'd been expecting this. He said quietly, "How long ago?" My voice shook. "I don't know, but this line..." He watched my hands. "Can you stop it?" I hesitated. I should call the suits. But the suits might be part of it. Or their system might be compromised. Or... His voice cut through my spiraling. "Nadia." I met his eyes. "Do it," he said. Something in his tone made my nurse brain snap into motion. I clamped the line, swapped the bag, flushed the port, checked for anything else. My hands moved like they'd done this 1,000 times. But my heart was screaming. When I finished, I stepped back, breath shallow. He watched me like he'd just seen proof of something. "You didn't hesitate long," he said. "I'm a nurse," I snapped. His gaze softened a fraction. "No," he said. "You're brave." That word hit me harder than it should have. I didn't feel brave. I felt cornered. A soft knock at the door again. 3 taps. The same rhythm. I looked at him. He didn't look away from me. "Don't answer," he said. My stomach dropped. The knock repeated, a little sharper. I stepped back instinctively. The patient's voice stayed calm. "They don't knock twice on this floor," he said. My skin went cold. "Who?" I started. The keypad beeped. Someone entered a code. The lock clicked. My heart slammed against my ribs. The door opened. The first suit stepped in. Fast, controlled. His eyes scanned me, then the patient, then the IV. Then his gaze snapped back to me. "What did you touch?" he demanded. I froze. The patient spoke first, voice like ice. "Lower your tone." The suit didn't. "Sir, we saw an alert." "Answer her," the patient said, ignoring him. The suit blinked. confused. The patient's eyes stayed on the suit. Who just tried to access this room? The suit's jaw clenched. No one. The patient's gaze didn't change. Lie again. The suit's mouth tightened. Then, reluctantly, he said, "Maintenance override." My stomach dropped. "Maintenance doesn't have access up here," I whispered. The suit's eyes flicked to me, annoyed. "They shouldn't," he admitted. The patient's gaze turned lethal. "So someone gave them access," he said. Silence. The suit swallowed. "We're checking footage." The patient's expression didn't move. "You won't find it," he said. The suit's eyes narrowed. "Why?" The patient's voice dropped. "Because the cameras are already dead." The suit froze. Then his hand moved to his earpiece. He listened. His face changed. Not much, but enough. The patient watched him. "Say it," he said softly. The suit's jaw clenched. "The cameras on this floor just went offline," he admitted. My blood ran cold. The patient's gaze flicked to me. "Now," he said quietly, "we get to the part where you decide if you want to live." I stared at him. "What?" The suit stepped forward, voice urgent now. "Sir, we need to move you." The patient's gaze snapped to him. "No," he said. "We need to move her." The suit blinked. "Her?" The patient looked at me. "Nadia," he said, and there was no softness left. "They didn't come for me." My throat tightened. "What do you mean?" He held my gaze and said, "They came to see if you matter." The suit's face tightened. "Sir, we can't." The patient cut him off. "You can. You will." Then he did something that made my skin crawl. He smiled. Not kindly, not warmly, like a man who'd just accepted the game. "They want a reaction," he said. "They want to see what I do when you're threatened." My mouth went dry. "I don't understand," I whispered. The patient's gaze sharpened. "You will?" The suit's radio crackled suddenly. Static, then a voice. Third floor stairwell. 2 unidentified, moving up. The suit's face went pale. I felt my knees weaken. This wasn't hospital drama. This was a breach. A real one. The suit turned to the patient. "Sir, we have to go. Now." The patient didn't move. He looked at me. And in a voice that didn't allow argument, he said, "Come here." I hesitated. The suit's eyes snapped to me. "Nurse, move." I moved. I stepped closer to the bed, hands trembling. The patient reached under his pillow. I flinched, expecting a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a photograph. He held it up between us. My breath stopped. It was an old photo, faded at the edges. A woman holding a little girl on her hip. The woman's face was half turned away, but the profile, the hair, the curve of her jaw, it looked like my mother. And the little girl? Her hair was dark. Her eyes were wide. And even though the photo was blurry, I recognized the shape of her mouth. I recognized her. Me. My vision blurred. I whispered, "What is this?" The patient's eyes never left my face. "You were mine before you were anyone else's," he said quietly. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might vomit. "No," I whispered. "That's not..." The suit cursed under his breath. "We don't have time for this." The patient's eyes snapped to him like a warning. Then he returned his gaze to me. "Nadia," he said, voice low. "Do you remember a man named Elias?" My heart seized. The name hit something in my skull like a distant bell. A shadow memory, a voice, a hand, a night I'd never been able to fully picture. My throat tightened. "I don't know." The patient's jaw tightened. "You will," he said, "because they're coming up those stairs for a reason." The suit's radio crackled again. Stairwell door breached. Shots fired. The voice cut off in static. My blood turned to ice. The suit turned sharply to the door, hand moving under his jacket. The patient grabbed my wrist, firm, steady. His touch was warm, not gentle, certain. He leaned in, close enough that I could feel his breath, and he said the sentence that snapped my world into 2. "Your mother didn't disappear, Nadia." My vision tunneled. She was taken. The hallway outside erupted with movement, boots, shouting, a heavy thud like a body hitting the floor. The suit backed toward the door, gun now visible, jaw tight. "Sir," he hissed. "Now." The patient didn't look at him. He looked at me, and he asked very softly, "Do you want the truth, or do you want to stay safe?" I stared at him, throat locked. The lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the entire suite went dark. The monitor kept beeping, its screen glowing like a heartbeat in the black. In the darkness, the patient's grip tightened around my wrist, and his voice came again, calm as if the world wasn't collapsing. "Take my hand," he said. The doorknob rattled violently. A shoulder slammed into the door. The wood groaned. The suit raised his weapon, bracing. And the patient, still in the bed, still connected to lines and tubes, said to me like it was the most normal request in the world, "If you stay, you become a target." Another slam. The lock screamed. A crack splintered through the frame. My breath came in sharp, shallow bursts. I stared at the photograph in his hand, the proof that my life had been connected to him long before tonight. And then I heard a voice outside the door, low, familiar in a way that made my blood freeze. It said, "Open it." The patient's eyes narrowed. He whispered, "Elias." My heart stopped. The door buckled again, and in the pitch black, with my wrist trapped in his grip and my mother's past exploding into my present, I realized the truth. This shift wasn't a job. It was a summons. And the person on the other side of that door wasn't here for him. He was here for me. If you want part 2, what happened when that door finally gave way, who Elias really is, and why this man in the bed has been waiting for me, follow right now, because the next 15 minutes changed everything I thought I knew about my mother and about myself.